You're listening to the Minor Detail Podcast, a place where all things community, encouragement, and lifestyle come together through meaningful conversation. I'm your host, Khaila Ariel, and I'm so grateful that you chose to join me on this journey of authenticity to serve as a link that amplifies human connection in our everyday lives. Navigating life on a daily basis can be difficult, but I am confident that together we'll be our own answer to life's minor little details that come our way. Sit back and enjoy today's episode, purposely curated just for you. Hey y'all, and welcome back to another episode of the Minor Detail Podcast. I'm your host, Khaila Ariel, and I am so grateful that you are tuning into today's episode. I am also super excited for y'all to listen to this conversation. I know that somebody, at least one person, will walk away feeling equipped and ready to take action. Joining us today is career strategist and founder of employeeredefined.com, Adunola Adeshola. Adunola helps high-achieving corporate professionals secure new jobs they love at companies they love. She's also a Forbes contributor where her career column on how to land a new job has been read more than 3 million times, and her expertise has been featured in the New York Times, Fast Company, and Bloomberg. Girl, you better work, okay? Thank you. Thank you for joining the show.
Of course. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, listen, I feel like I say this every episode, but like, what don't you do? And it's so impressive. And I guess I just have some impressive guests. So, kudos there. But literally to read your bio and introduce you is so impressive. We were chatting a little bit before officially recording today. And I was just telling Adunola how right now this topic of conversation is so relevant. Like it's so relevant to what people are experiencing, to pivots and shifts that we're all honestly making. I have my own personal story here as it relates to my professional career. So I'm excited to have you on. I know that listeners will definitely walk away feeling really fruitful and like they're ready to take action, like they're next steps in their career plan. So I won't ruin too much of it. Before we officially jump in, I do want to know, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. I rarely wear red lipstick and I have that on today. So it's giving that power moves, like a power vibe. So I'm feeling good and I'm excited.
Well, listen, you look amazing. So you what is it? You look as good as you feel, something like that. I don't know.
I said that to myself. So yes.
Okay, cool.
Look good, feel good.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to say. Okay. So as we dive in, I would love to learn more about Employee Redefined and what it means to be a career strategist. I feel like I have seen the term just newly come on the scene, so to speak. But I love the term specifically, or the title specifically, career strategist, because I feel like it's like that's such a strategy. Navigating your career, right. It takes strategy, like entering into whatever role you're, deeply desiring. Like it takes a legit strategy. And so I would love to hear more about Employee Redefined, how you got your start. But yeah, we can start there.
Yes. So as you know, or as you shared, I started employeeredefined.com. Some would know it as the New Employees on Instagram. But I started this back in 2016. So it's been a while that I've been in this industry. And I decided to go with the name career strategist because, like you said, I wanted it to be very clear that I really was interested in helping my clients and my team and I's clients be able to navigate what that looks like and what that career move looks like for them. And I also go by career coach, but I think I like career strategy as well, because I feel like it was really encompassing of the nature of what it looks like to really strategize on that next career move and to lay it out and to really, I'm really passionate and dedicated to helping my clients be able to understand what's missing and what they might not actually see in themselves when it comes to making that career change. And so it really just kind of fully encompasses what our work is and what we do to help our clients get that next step, make that next step in their career and get that new job that they're looking for.
I love that. I seriously do, because I know I've been in the position where I can go back to like almost 2 years ago now, but I had been unemployed during the time of COVID. I was looking to pivot in my career, and it was like 10 months of just pure unemployment, scrubbing the internet, scrubbing LinkedIn for job openings, like literally applying all best practices that I could think of outside of, like updating my bio and making sure my headshot looked a certain way and, reaching out to recruiters and things of that nature. So that's what I mean when I say like it's a legit strategy and it takes time. What would you say is the most common theme when new clients approach you or, those interested in the business need help? What are those common themes that they usually come to you with when seeking help?
Yeah, so I always say that we have two types of clients. So usually when I'm working with a client, we have the one client who probably has done all the things, right? Like they've tried everything, they've read every article, they've listened to every podcast, they've applied to 500,000 jobs, they have updated their resume too many times to count. I remember I've spoken to someone who said they had 17 resumes, and I was like, oh my goodness, like so I always say that that's the first kind of client who's done all the things. They're literally like in a place that they're like, okay, I've done it all. What am I doing wrong? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I've done everything. And then we have the second type of client who they're like, I know I need a new job. I know it needs to happen. I'm ready, but I don't know what to do. And so they feel a little bit more paralyzed because they like to get things done in a really specific kind of way, but they don't know what that specific way should look like. So they don't really do anything because they don't want to mess it up. And so I like to say those are the two types of people who usually are in our orbit, who are like, okay, I need help. And some of them don't really even know what that help looks like because they've done everything. And then some of them are just also confused because they don't know where to start with getting the help that they need or what that should look like.
That's really interesting because those are like two different type of people, but they still have commonalities, right? It's
Yes.
like that perfectionist approach
Mm-hmm.
where you almost procrastinate because you don't know how to do it perfectly, but
Right.
then you are almost like obsessed with doing things perfectly. So you're constantly like updating your resume and now you have 17, which
Mm-hmm.
is wild.
It is. It is.
17 is a lot of resumes, but I definitely used to have like three or four. So I feel it. You identify your target audience almost, or what would you say, like define your target audience as high achievers. I can definitely see like where that high achiever or high achievement style comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
How did you identify that? Like what made you say like, you know what, my business is to go after those high achievers that are
Right.
looking to, make their next move in their career?
Well, so I think I will say the reason started with me, right? So I always say that I'm my ideal client. I started my career no clue that I was going to be doing what I'm doing today. And I was like, I'm going to go into PR. I'm going to be this heel clacking executive. I was so sure of it. And when I graduated, I ended up getting a job at a global PR firm, exactly where I wanted to be, doing the work that I wanted to do. And I was there for a while and things were going well until I realized that it just wasn't what I wanted anymore. And I found myself being that high achieving corporate professional who thought that if I just, put my head down and did the work, that things are going to fall in place, who thought that, someone would eventually notice me and promote me or give me the opportunities that I was looking for. And so I know what it's like to be that person who feels like you work hard, you cross off all your boxes, you're willing to do what it takes, but then things just don't match out the way that you had in your mind that they would. And so that's a really unique place to be in where you feel like you're doing everything, you're trying everything, and things aren't working in your favor. And so you can find yourself at that crossroad of like, okay, so what do I do now? When I feel like I've done the things, like I went to the good school or a decent school, right? I graduated, I got the job, I stayed late. I overworked. I was the yes person. I probably had zero boundaries while I was doing it. But yet I see everybody else getting promoted. I see everybody else getting new job opportunities. And here I am in a place where I'm still doing the work. I'm still overworked, probably underpaid, and not making any progress in the way that I want in my career. And so because I was that person, I know what it's like to be in that space of feeling grateful yet lonely, feeling, fulfilled but unfulfilled, are feeling lost, but yet still knowing that you're in a place where you once wanted to be in, right? And so that's what kind of sparked the desire to work with those types of people, high achievers, because I know what it feels like to kind of be at that crossroads and not to be able, and also know what it's like to not know how to express that sometimes, because everyone else around you might feel like you have it all together, or you're the one who, is goals, or whatever the case is. And so it can be hard to even translate those feelings, or to be able to even share that you do feel lost, or you do feel stuck. And so that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to narrow in and work with those types of people, because I know what it feels like and how to help them navigate that.
That is so real because I think that people get to that point, but don't necessarily feel encouraged to take action. And I think that that's like, I wouldn't even call it a breaking point for people. I feel like that's a stopping point for a lot of
Mm-hmm,
people.
mm-hmm.
And my friends and I have kind of been having that conversation as we just climb the corporate ladder. Like the higher we
Right.
get, the more we're exposed to. And it's almost like the more you're exposed to, the more reluctant you are to like either stay at that place, or you start to feel like maybe I want to rethink my options a little bit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that can be like a difficult journey, like, or not even journey because you haven't gotten on the journey yet, but that can be a difficult like mindset to not only realize but even accept.
Right.
And then once you get to the point of accepting, and you might even be taking that leap of faith, it's difficult to take that leap of faith. Like you've been there, like you said, I've been there. How do you either encourage your clients to take that leap of faith if you do that, or even just like recognize it?
Yeah. First of all, everything you said is spot on. Like it's like it's a two-step process almost, because you do have to come to a place of like, oh wait, I'm not really happy here, right? Like that takes some time. It took me months to be like, oh no, I'm not crazy. Like I'm actually just unhappy here, or I've outgrown this situation. And it can take some time for you to actually get to that place. And so if you're in a space where you're having those thoughts or those feelings, one, just recognize that you're not alone, and that it's a process to getting there, because you probably did work your butt off to get to where you are. And so to think that you're unhappy can feel a little like, what's wrong with me? But really, it's probably not you. I'm pretty sure it's not you. And you are just in a place where you're realizing that you want more. And so the second thing I would say is like, don't ignore that feeling, right? Like I ignored that feeling for so long of like, I used to have this nagging feeling of I can do more than this. I can do more than this. And I ignored it because I really didn't know what that more looked like, or what that felt like, or what that meant I needed to do next. And so I was just like, oh, let me just keep at what I'm doing now. And I will say that if you are feeling that, I like to say that that's your body's internal alarm letting you know that there's another spot for you, there's another direction for you, and you can trust it. And also, I think when you do decide to accept that, you have to also accept that you have to take action. And that can feel very scary, especially if you are a type A kind of person who likes things laid out. So it's like, okay, so what do I do now? But also just recognize that you don't have to have it all figured out to take steps forward, and that baby steps still move you forward. And that as you take steps forward, you build your confidence. And confidence comes from competence. So as you start taking steps and you start learning more about what you do like or what you don't like, you get more confident in what's going to work for you or where you're going. And so I do believe that you have to start taking a few steps forward to start realizing where do you want to go. And that can be scary, but you just have to trust the process, because your career is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And when you realize that, you can be able to take those steps knowing that everything is teaching you something. And again, if you do want support so that you can navigate that without having to kind of hit a wall many, many times, then look into that as well and think about what that could look like. But I do think it's first accepting that, one, it's completely normal to get to a place where you've achieved so much and you realize you don't really like what you've achieved, or you want to achieve more. Just go with that feeling and trust it and let it lead you to the next steps.
I feel encouraged, and I'm not even and this is not like even an official client conversation, but no, seriously, I think that type A, yes, you said it right, because that's me all the way. I'm like, I need a
Same.
plan. I need something actionable. Okay. Like I need to
Right.
know ABC, like what are we doing? Do you think that, or do you recommend in your work for people to establish some type of like exit strategy, or like 3-step approach to, like, because I think sometimes like, yes, encouragement works, but having like an actual plan is usually what kind of pushes people off the edge a little bit. Do you
Yes.
have any guidance around like what that looks like?
Yes, I think practically decide when you want to leave. Like, I think that it's so funny because I find that sometimes people get so scared to even say they want to leave when really you don't have to just quit, like instead just kind of come up with a plan of when you want to leave. Like think about how far in advance you want to be in that new job and set that timeline for yourself. And then I would say you need to get clarity. So that's the number one thing that I teach inside my coaching program, because most people talk about how you just need to brush up your resume, get it updated and start putting yourself out there. But that is a sure way to waste your time, your energy, to get burnt out, to lose out on opportunities. And instead, you need to get clear on what do you want? Because often if you find yourself just starting to look for new jobs and brushing up your resume, you'll end up applying for jobs that sound like what you already have, or you'll see jobs that really sound cool, but you'll disqualify yourself from applying for them. And you just kind of go in this cycle that you don't need to go in. And so first you need to get clear on what do I want? And that starts with understanding what's missing. So what's missing in your current job? Is it the culture? Are you not happy with that? Are you not happy with the work that you're doing? And if you're not happy with the work that you're doing, is it because you want more challenging work? You're ready for that next leadership role? Or is it because you don't really like the work that the company does in general and you need to make a pivot into a new industry? Is it the company, right? So is it the type of work they do? So if it's not, maybe you need to find another company in that industry where you like the company and you like what they're doing, or maybe you need to find another company that's outside of your industry where you can do work that you like to do, but you get to do it for a different type of client, or you get to do it for a different type of product. And so you really have to start asking yourself those sometimes hard questions on what's missing, what would you want, what would make you feel fulfilled? Because a lot of times when I talk to people, they're like, oh, I just want a new job and I want it to be a remote job and maybe in tech and maybe I get paid more money. And it's like, love that. But none of that is a job description. So how can we get clear on what you want to do and where do you want to do it so that you can possibly work from home doing it? And maybe it's in tech and maybe you get paid more, but none of that will help you actually be more intentional about how you're putting yourself out there. None of that will help you be intentional about what stories you need to be telling to get that job. And so getting clarity on where you want to be is the foundation, because from there you can start thinking about what are the stories that I want to tell to get this job? What are the experiences that I need to focus on? I like to say that a lot of high achievers are experience hoarders. And what that means is like, you'll take all the experience you've had and just say, oh my gosh, here's all of my experience. I have 8+ years of experience. Hope you see how amazing I am and hire me. When really people need to know what about that 8 years of experience makes you valuable and shows that you can do what they need you to do in this specific role. And so getting that clarity allows you to now understand, okay, what are the things that I want to actually say about myself in my resume, on my LinkedIn, in my networking conversations, in my interviews, that's really going to give people that confidence that I can actually do this next level of work that I'm wanting to do in my career. So we'll start there.
Listen, you're literally dropping gems. I'm like, yep, okay, I gotcha. And as you were talking, I was like, I have a nosy question. This is for personal gain. Okay,
Go
no, I'm just
ahead.
kidding. What do you feel like when people are ready to go? What do you feel like are the most like popular reasons? Is it pay? Do they want to increase their pay? Kind of like you mentioned, work in tech or, get higher salary. Is it like toxic work environments, toxic work cultures, toxic bosses? Like, what would you say are kind of like those common themes? I'm curious.
You know what's funny? It actually boils down to the top two that I would say is career growth. So lack of career growth. And sometimes I can go under the umbrella of like, I have a unsupportive boss. So that means I know that I can't grow here. Or sometimes that means that I'm not getting promotions that I know that I should be getting. And so it's time for me to leave. And so that can kind of fall under multiple things. But then I also think the other piece is management. So not having a good leader, not feeling supported, not feeling like you are valued enough, or that you feeling like your skills are underutilized by your boss. And so I think that having a unsupportive or terrible boss is also one of those reasons why a lot of clients that we work with decide to leave, because they feel like, they're getting mentally drained by their environment. They don't feel like they're able to really thrive in the way that they know that they can. And they don't really see a future where they're at. And I think that the minute people stop seeing a future where they're at, they start looking elsewhere. And so I think at any point that you're no like it could be a lot of different symptoms, but even as I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, I think that's what it boils down to, is when you don't really see yourself being able to continue where you're at for whatever reason, because it's toxic or because you don't see any career opportunities, then people start looking elsewhere and seeing where else can they thrive and grow. And then I think when it is time for them to start looking, they're like, oh, I can make more money, right? And so it's like, now I want to make more money. And so they kind of make that a priority too. But I find sometimes people are like, if I can find a place where I can grow and I can thrive and I can do the work where I wake up feeling excited about it, then that becomes even the priority. And I like to say that we like in my coaching program, I say that we play at a level that pays. So whenever you decide that you're ready to do that, you're always going to be able to find a place that pays at that level, because you know how to be able to secure those opportunities.
Listen, y'all, you play at a level that pays. Okay, because I heard it. I did. I love that. And I think what comes to mind when you talk about like getting to the next level, especially the level that pays, it makes me think a little bit about imposter syndrome, which is something else that I wanted to chat about with you today, because I'm sure that this comes up pretty often in your line of work. And I was looking at the definition of imposter syndrome, and Psychology Today describes imposter syndrome as or people who are experiencing imposter syndrome more specifically, like they believe that they are deserving of their achievements and the high esteem in which they are. They also feel that they aren't competent or intelligent as others might think, and that soon enough, people will discover the truth about them. That is like literally the most insane mindset way of thinking that I feel like even I still have not cracked the code. I remember being in college and the term started to come up. I was actually listening to a podcast and the term came up. They were talking about dealing with imposter syndrome. And I remember just feeling like, okay, cool. If that ever happens, like I know what to look out for, what to recognize. But I feel like it wasn't something that I experienced until like most recently in my career, right? Like you would think, I don't know, it would hit you when you don't really know much. You're like when you're first entering your career, like you're first starting out, but then you have a few years under your belt, like some actual tenure under your belt, and you're like, wait a minute, why do I feel like everybody's going to figure me out one day? You know, what has your experience like dealing with imposter syndrome, you know, on behalf of your clients or like working with them through that? Like, what has that been like? Because I feel like more people experience it than we think.
Yes. I mean, funny enough, because we talked about high achievers, I think the New York Times mentioned it, that imposter syndrome typically affects women, minorities, high achievers, and creatives. And I think there is something to be said about that.
Listen, I have to stop you there because I'm all of those things, and that is not fair.
Right. We're hit by it like all over the place. Like
yes, literally 4 punches. You're like women, minorities, Black women, creatives, high achievers, and it's like, yeah, go ahead, off me, imposter syndrome. Please bring clarity to my life, Adunola, please.
So I think that it's really important to understand that you're not alone in that feeling of imposter syndrome. And I like to say that imposter syndrome is a natural reaction to choosing an ambitious life. Like anytime you decide that it's time for you to dream bigger, move bigger, do something different, you're going to feel imposter syndrome. And so I think that the decision isn't how do I get rid of this, but instead, how do I use this as confirmation that it's time for me to keep going, that it's time for me to dream bigger, that it's time for me to adjust to this new environment that I'm in. And I often say to first of all, a lot of my clients deal with this, and so much so that I've gave it a term, which I call default doubts. And so this is typically what I call the default doubts that start to come up whenever you feel triggered or stretched, right? So whenever you feel like you're stretching yourself to this next level, or you feel triggered because you're like, maybe this isn't possible for me, you have those default doubts. And I would say that some of the common default doubts that all kind of boil down to imposter syndrome is feeling like I'm not good enough, feeling like I don't belong here, feeling like I'm too old, or I'm too young, or these things come natural to me. Am I really that good at it? Right. And maybe you're not saying this comes natural to me, but you're questioning your skills and you're questioning your accomplishments, like, are you brushing them off? Right. And so I like to say that if you're starting to experience that at any phase of your life, then that's a sign that you're dreaming bigger. And so kudos to you, because you never feel imposter syndrome when you're comfortable. Like you don't feel imposter syndrome when you know everything or when things are just mundane in your life. But the minute you decide like I'm ready to try something new, I'm ready to grow, I'm ready to go after this next thing, that's when you start wondering, are you going to get found out? But the truth is, there's nothing to find out other than you actually are amazing. And so it really starts with understanding what are your default doubts so that you can acknowledge them and then you can reframe them. So if it's I'm too young, first of all, who said that? Right? Like who said you're too young? And then go look for people who are your age killing it in the way that you want to kill it. Right. Or if it's like maybe these things come natural to me, or I'm really not that good at it, or that is just easy. That's why I'm able to do them. Who said that? Right. Number one, because I can say who said that to everything. Right. But then look at your accomplishments, right? Like if you consistently have done these different accomplishments year after year or in one position to the next, then maybe it's not easy. Maybe you're just good. And at some point you have to accept that you are good at this. And if you've done it before, you can do it again and you can continue to do it again. And so I think that it's really important to one, recognize that what you're feeling is common. I think two, you have to acknowledge what exactly is triggering that imposter syndrome. What is the feeling underneath that you're like tying to yourself so that you can understand where that's coming from and then reframe that so that you can start to see yourself in a new light. And whenever you do feel triggered or stretched, you can remind yourself of that reframe instead of allowing that default doubt to kind of just fester to the point that you get paralyzed. And I think the final thing is knowing that imposter syndrome does not come to paralyze you. It literally just comes. Like before we started recording, we talked about allergies, and it's like allergies come seasonally, right? And if we're like, oh my gosh, the allergies are here, we can't leave the house, then we would always be in the house around this season. But I think that we have to start treating imposter syndrome almost like allergies, right? Like it's here, but it doesn't have to stop us. Take a Zyrtec, like take a second to get clarity, figure out where that's stemming from, but keep moving forward because it's not there to paralyze you. It's just showing up because you are actually already doing the thing that is uncomfortable and you can still continue to do it and you have what it takes. It's already inside of you.
That is so beautiful. Because listen, number one, you saying default doubts, it's triggering in a good way because I think that you're right. There is a wave of emotion that hits before imposter syndrome, before you're able to recognize, wait a minute, I'm tripping. It's the default doubts, right? Because you're sitting there typically doing something new, or like you said, doing something that's stretching you or causing you to like do something for the first time. And you're realizing like, oh, I might not be good at this, or I don't know what I'm doing. And then it's literally like a wave of emotions. And I love the term default doubts because they come so quickly. And then you're able to kind of walk backwards and you're like, oh, this is imposter syndrome. Oh, let me remind myself. But 2 hours have passed by at that point.
2 days, sometimes 2 weeks. Like
literally some time. Like you said, the allergy analogy is hilarious because it's like if we were to stop and halt and seize everything we were doing due to imposter syndrome, like we would not get anywhere. And sometimes we don't, right? Because we are so like encompassed with fear. It's like I need to just stay in the same place and do nothing to feel good, which is also insane.
Yes.
I love how you talked about reframing. I think that's really important. And I think that that's a tool that a lot of people could benefit from. What does reframing look like tangibly, like tactically? If I were to walk away from this conversation, like I'm about to be reframing these default doubts, like what do I do?
I love this because I love this one because I always say that like in light of even job searching, it's 20% when you have the right strategies, it's 20% strategies and 80% tactics, right? And so, or I'm gonna say that again, it's 20% strategies, 80% mindset, because your mindset can really get in the way, even if you have the best resume, the best interview skills, the best confidence, like if you don't feel good about yourself, if you're doubting your capabilities, then it really doesn't matter, right? And so, for example, because I literally have some like clear reframes for you. But like we talked about, number one is acknowledging what is coming up. So what is that feeling? So for some people that could very much be, I'm not good enough. And so a reframe could be like exchanging almost like the truth, the lies with the truth. So the lie is I'm not good enough. But what is the truth, right? Like the truth is you are good enough. The truth is you have been good enough. The truth is you've gotten every job that you wanted because you worked hard for it. No one came to your house one day and said, here's this salary and we hope you do well in the job. You worked for it, you interviewed for it, you got the job and you were accepted for it. And then you did well in that job enough to be wanting the next stage in your career. So instead of wondering, am I good enough for this job? You have to start saying to yourself, I've earned the right to pursue this level in my career. I've earned the right to go after this next step in my career. And so even just that simple sentence from I'm not good enough to I've earned the right to pursue this opportunity is a game changer, because you're like, oh wait, I have 6+ years of experience. I did XYZ for this last client, or my team is proud of me for XYZ, or whatever the case is that you feel like you may have has made you ready in the sense of like expertise for this next level. You have earned it. No one handed it to you. And we have to stop saying that, because it's so oh, I just think that, I just fell into this role. Did you though? Like that's another reframe. Did you fall into it, or did you maybe work so hard that they could not deny that you were the person who should be in this opportunity? I think that's a completely different way to see it. And so I think reframes start from that. Like, what is the lie that I'm feeling? Because yes, you could feel like things just come naturally, or you just got lucky. But did you get lucky, or did you actually put in the work and the effort? Did you maybe set a goal for this to be the case? Did you maybe work hard for this? Did you maybe go back to school for this, right? Like, did you stay up late and complete that project for 2 weeks before you actually handed it to your boss, and then really looked at it again before you send it over? Like what did you actually do? Because that's going to be the truth that you can start to carry with you, opposed to just the blatant kind of vague statements that we make of I'm not good enough, or I just got lucky, or I just fell into this. No. What actually happened? And from there, that is the reframe that you want to now acknowledge. And like, for example, I had a client who she had been at the same company for 18 years. And she really thought that maybe she wasn't that good at her job. And that was because she had a toxic boss, to the point that when she did decide to leave, her boss was like, she had a meltdown essentially. And she thought that that was because of her, or because she was not that good at her job, or whatever the case was. And one of the reframes we had to make for her was like, well, if you weren't that valuable, I don't think that your boss would blink an eye that you were leaving. But I think the fact that their immaturity showed you that they valued you enough to be feeling this kind of way is proof that you were good at your job. And in her, like, she had to really come from this, like, move from this place of like, I'm not good enough, or I just kind of did these things and they didn't really matter because my boss didn't acknowledge them, to recognizing that at one point, she was like, I realize now that 70% of our workload was my responsibility. And I was like, so what does that tell you? And so maybe even that recognizing that you being overworked and they're just handing you this job. Yes, that's probably a sign that you need to start setting some boundaries, but it's also a sign that they trust you to do this, and they trust you to commit to this and to get it done. And so even with that client, she went from not really feeling great about her skills, wondering about if she was qualified. She ended up quitting her job because she was ready for something new. And in less than 90 days, literally about like 2 weeks ago, she got hired for a new job in a new role where she's making $20,000 more. She's in a leadership opportunity. They're ready, like they're excited about her and what she can do. They're ready for her to like reframe everything that they're doing, changing their whole systems. And that's what's possible when you start to reframe. So that's like a long full circle picture of how to reframe and what comes about it when you really start to think through it and own what you really do bring to the table.
No, I love that you shared that, because I think that although it might have felt long to you, I think the different scenarios are important, right? Because people not only can see themselves in it, but you said something earlier that I feel is so key, is like this all boils back down to confidence. Like, how confident are you in the value that you bring? And it's okay to not feel confident every day. Like, I do not feel confident every day. I'm sure you have moments where you don't feel your most confident, but it does go back to confidence and being able to realize that you do bring value, and it's okay to be confident in the value that you bring. Because I think a lot of people what they struggle with is when it is time to pivot, when it is time to make that next move, the stuckness is really in lack of confidence, right? It's not knowing how to pivot, number one, how to make that decision, number two, but
Right.
how to package themselves up in a way that feels valuable moving
Right.
into that next space.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Like you hit them on the head. Like, and I think that when we hear confidence, it can just feel like, okay, like I have to start looking in the mirror and saying, I am smart, like, but it doesn't have to be like that. Right. And so, even when it comes to your job search, you need confidence in your strategy, you need confidence in your direction, and you need confidence in yourself. And I think that those three things that people can skip all of that and think, oh, I just have to believe and I just have to know I'm worthy. And yeah, like you should, because I mean, we see people every day probably with less experience getting hired for jobs that you could probably do 10 times better. Right. But it really does start with you knowing that you deserve it. And this is how I want to go about getting it, because that confidence in your strategy gives you that momentum, that fire to say, okay, now I can start making this happen. Now I can start putting myself out there because I know what to do to get what I'm looking for.
For sure. And I think kind of pivoting into confidence, we are feeling a lack of confidence in the job market right now, right? Like with recent layoffs, especially in tech, I think more specifically,
Mm-hmm.
it's either you're feeling nervous about what could be happening,
Right.
you might have an idea that your company may be making some changes and so you're preparing, or you're actually navigating a layoff currently. Like you're in that experience and really just getting yourself to whatever position necessary, right, to make your next move. How has or how have layoffs impacted your business, your clients? Is that something that you're not experiencing, but you're kind of secondhand experiencing it on behalf of your clients?
Yeah. So I would say that there's always a category of clients. I would say we have the clients who have been laid off. And we also have the clients who've been at their companies. Like I just mentioned, one of our clients has been at a company for 18 years. So we have clients who've been at their companies for a very long time, who are just like, I'm ready for something new. I mean, unfortunately, some of those clients in that regard are clients who maybe their company is experiencing layoffs, but they're the ones who's taking on the overtime, who's taking on two workloads, right? And so I think that there's so many different layers to people experiencing the impact of how layoffs are affecting so many people. And I think that one, it's important to know that like a layoff is not is not an indicator of you or your expertise or your contributions or your growth. It literally is a business decision. And so I think that it's important because if you do want to be able to quickly bounce back from that, one, you should grieve that, especially, because as much as we like to act like it doesn't, our careers can really bleed into a lot of different areas of our lives. And so if you are experiencing a layoff right now, it's important to really allow yourself to feel the feels of that. And also know that like you get to take your experience, your track record, your value, your results with you to that next place. And so when you are ready, it's important to recognize that you can still go, right? Like you can still make this happen. That unfortunately this time in the workplace is I guess really stained by layoffs right now, but this will pass. And even in the midst of it, there are so many companies who still do need what you are looking to bring to the table, right? And so because we have to realize also that companies don't just hire because you need a job or because it would be nice to have you on their team or because they're like, oh, it'd be great to just bring on this kind of person. No, like they hire because they actually have a problem. They actually need someone to help them out. They maybe need a new leader. They need a new strategy. They need an extra hand. They need someone to increase their revenue. Like they have real issues that they need people to fill. And so once you are able to kind of work through your own feelings about what that layoff has meant to you, and once you're ready to get back out there, it's important to recognize that you are still a solution to someone else's problems. And that is what you want to focus on going into your job search, not, oh, I need a job so bad, as it may be, right? But it shouldn't be, oh, I need a job so bad. who's going to hire me. It should be how can I start to position the skills that I brought to that last company and show that I can bring that to the next company? And what are the opportunities that are available for me to be able to show this and get hired for this? And I think that's a really important mindset shift, because without that, you'll just find yourself, there's a lot of people on LinkedIn right now that are just like looking for new opportunities. Literally, they just say looking for new opportunities. If you know someone, please tell them. And it's like, what are we supposed to tell them? Because we don't know what you do. Like, you can't just say I'm looking for new opportunities, because then you put the hard work on someone else to kind of decipher what does that mean for you. And so really understanding that concept of like, okay, now that I am out of this job and it sucks and I hate it, it's not what I expected. What are the skills that I want to continue to utilize in my career going forward? What are the opportunities that are available for me to pursue that? And then how can I start to concisely and confidently share with people what I'm looking to do and why I'm ready for that next step, so that getting that job kind of starts to become a possibility for me. And so that's kind of what I would suggest, and how I share with my clients to think about it, so that you're really positioning yourself for success, and so that you're really allowing yourself to not just take a new job, but to really possibly make a change that makes that layoff a blessing in disguise.
I love your mindset around layoffs just in general, because I think one of the first key points that you mentioned is that it's a business decision, right? And while that might feel harsh and blunt in the upfront, I think it also helps us grieve through or just like experience the feelings of being laid off, because you're right, it does not define your value, it does not define who you are, and you can almost like write it off a bit easier that way, because you know that like this had nothing to do with me and the value that I brought to the table or the work that I brought to the table, and I can almost like move forward from this point on knowing that I'm in a good position to find something else. So I feel like that is a great way to look at it, because I think it's easy to internalize that. Like, it's easy to feel like a failure. It's easy to feel like you did something wrong in that scenario, when you shouldn't feel that way at all. Like, you should be repackaging your skills or pivoting your skills in a way that, you can explain to the next place why, you are or should be brought on to another role. So I love that.
Absolutely. And it reminds me, as you were talking, so it reminded me of one of my other clients who had been in her company for 10 years and had been, recognized as a top performer. She had gotten awards at her company. She was like a global leader. And she suddenly found out that she was laid off. And she was like, what the heck? Like, what is happening in my life? And it was completely unexpected on her part. But once she was able to apply some of these things and some of those practical strategies in my program, she literally went from, and she was ready though, because she, like, in 2 weeks she had revamped her her resume, got into a place where she was knowing what she wants. She put out some applications, and one of the recruiters that she applied for a job for told her that she had the best resume that they had seen in months, and she had locked in interviews that following week for multiple companies right away. And I share that to say that that is an example of, you are not defined by your layoff, right? And it's so important to hear that and to really understand that, because I do think that layoffs are fairly new. The mass layoffs are fairly new for our generation. Like, we grew up seeing our parents work at companies for 30 plus years. So yes, we've also seen the recession of 2008 or whatever have you, but this magnitude of layoffs that we're experiencing, especially in tech, this coveted industry where everyone wants to work in, it can be kind of painful to swallow. And so I think it's important to recognize that, like you said, layoffs do not have to define you. You are like, even in this moment, capable of whatever job you desire, and you have what it takes to make that happen. And so it's just so important to allow yourself to grieve that, because if you don't, then you'll be carrying all of that into the interviews and into your conversations, and it will kind of blind the value that you bring. It's like almost like putting mud on a diamond, right? And so you have to really allow yourself to work through those feelings of frustration and guilt or shame or whatever that looks like, and then be able to say, okay, now what does this next chapter in my career look like, so that you can go into that with a fresh start and a fresh energy for whatever's possible for you next.
I love that you mentioned that, because I think you're right. this process, the process of interviewing, the process of finding your next role, it really is like such a personal experience. Like I don't know how to explain it, but going through it, like I mentioned earlier, like I was going through it for 10 months before I found a new full-time role. And I think for me, more specifically, what I recognize is like you carry those things with you into interviews. You carry the feeling of like, oh, I just need this job really, really bad. And I'm feeling anxious about it because if I don't get it, then what does that mean for me and my future? Like
Yes.
interviewers can see that. You wear that on your sleeve whether you like it or not. And I mean, I got to last rounds of interviews, and I really do believe that a lot of times the reason I wasn't, like, the rejection came and I wasn't getting these roles was because the confidence the confidence was not there. The value was there, but the confidence to sell it through wasn't there because I was wearing these other emotions on me.
Right,
And so I
right.
love that you broke that down because I think that that is really true. And it also makes me think about all the listeners who might be navigating this journey. It's a very lonely journey too. Like I wish I would have
Mhm.
known about Employee Redefined because you were definitely working. So you started in 2016 and I'm like, this is 2020 for me. Where were you? Why didn't I know about you? But it's a very lonely process. And for anyone listening who would want to more or want to learn more about Employee Redefined, who could actually benefit from working with you, what does getting started look like? Are you able to give guidance on things like, preparing for the job search, like you mentioned, and resume, and even getting into things like compensation and interviews?
Absolutely. So the program that I've been referring to for my clients, it's called Career Define, and it is my signature program for mid to senior level corporate professionals who are ready to take their careers to the next level with a new senior role, or who want to pivot into a new industry without starting over. And so that program is a 90-day program where I walk my clients through how to clarify their next role, how to package their skills. So again, how to revamp their resume, how to attract the right recruiters on LinkedIn, how to dish the ATS system and actually stand out and connect with the right decision makers, even if they don't know anyone. And also how to interview, how to make sure that you are standing out consistently at every stage of the interview process. Because I think that that's something that people don't really understand what the differences are in interviews, like from the first stage to the final stage. And so that's something that we cover as well, and how to get paid, right? So when you do get that salary, when you do get that job offer, how to make sure you get a competitive salary that aligns with the work that you're going to be doing, where you feel like it is worth the work and the effort that you're going to be putting into your everyday job. And so really I created this program because to me, I know that it's so like when my clients come to the program, I always say like, you're good at a lot of things, but what do you really want to do? Right. And so this program is an opportunity for those who are like, I know that I can do this job or that job or the other job, but I'm ready to get the job that I would like to do, that I'm excited to do. And I want to be able to do that in a way that I'm able to position myself as a top candidate for those opportunities, whether there's many of those jobs available or a few of those jobs available. And so that's really what I help them be able to accomplish during those 12 weeks inside the program. And often our clients are able to land interviews in that time, get job offers in between that time. But I always say that whatever you do, you'll always leave confident and clear about what value you bring to the table. And you'll always know that you deserve to be in the room. And whenever you do get that job, you'll know exactly what it looks like to be able to excel and to know that you're worthy of that opportunity. So that's kind of how the breakdown works.
No, you're clear. Like I'm hearing you. Do people ever start the process or start this with a current job, or do they usually wait until they're like looking?
Most of my clients are currently working. And so one of the things that I teach my clients is how to job search with a busy schedule. So typically, because again, we work with high achievers who have a busy, robust, personal life just as much as they have a really busy professional life. And so I always say that once you're in the program, I'll show you how to job search. And you're probably going to laugh at this because you're probably going to be shocked at this, but I tell my clients that we teach them how to job search with like only using 4 to 5 hours a week, so that they're actually able to spend quality time and quantity time. And in that time, our clients are still able to, on average, most of our clients apply to less than a dozen jobs over those 12 weeks. Some have only applied to 6, one even only applied to 2, which is still mind blowing, and got hired. But we really focus on quality over quantity so that they're able to spend quality time on their job search, set aside that non-negotiable hours without having their job search take over their lives, because I love to live my life. And I think that is important for everyone to be able to know how to live their life while still being able to pursue the career that's important to them.
No, I love that. And you're right. Because 4 to 5 hours, I'm like, huh, where? You know? And also what you said earlier is cheat the, what do you call it? HTS?
What?
You mentioned, you said cheat the, I'm assuming it's like when you put your application in and it
Oh,
scans.
ditch the ATS system.
Yeah, ATS. I have never heard of that before. That is crazy.
Yes.
Hacking the
So,
system.
yeah. Because most people, they just apply through the application portal, which I call the black hole of rejection, and you never hear back, right? I think the statistic is about 2% of people who apply through the application portal hear back and actually get an interview. So I teach my clients how to ditch that and do another method to help them actually get interviews, regardless if they have a huge network or don't know anyone.
No, for sure. And where can people go to find out about this? Because I'm like, we need a code, we need something. Like listeners, I feel like after this episode, they're going to be running to
Yeah.
your landing page. Okay.
Yes. So you can simply go to employeeredefined.com, and on that page, you'll see the option to click on coaching. And then you can also follow me on Instagram at the new employees, where you'll also get some details too in my bio on how to start working with me if you're interested.
I love it. I love it. And listen, last question before we officially hop. I feel like we could talk about so much more, but we're out of time, unfortunately, and I'm so sad. But I did want to ask you, what is your overall vision for, Employer Redefined? You're doing amazing work with your clients, and I'm sure that you have vision for how you want to continue to see this grow. I would love to know more about how we can support you if possible. But I just, you're doing such fruitful work. Like seriously, this process is insane. It's lonely. It's
It
highly sought
is.
after right now. And I want to make sure that people can get connected with you and what you're doing.
Yeah, my vision is to really help high achievers stop playing small, because I think that most people do what they're supposed to do, but not really what they want to do. And so my goal is to impact people in that way, where they realize that, oh, I can be doing so much more. And this is how I get that. Like, I love on Instagram when someone's like, just following you makes me realize that I haven't been doing this right. Or like, I can be doing more than this, or I'm better than what I've been giving myself credit for. And I think if that's only what people get from just even a caption or a post, like that to me is like life changing, because once you realize that, you start showing up differently, you start believing differently, you start attracting better opportunities. And so I want to be able to impact as many high achievers, as many people who have doubted themselves, but who know deep down that they're capable of more. And so anytime I get to do that is just like a priceless experience for me. Even this conversation is priceless, because I just know that it's going to impact so many people. So I would say that's my vision, being able to elevate that and being able to help people at a larger scale continue. I say larger scale thinking about how millions of people have read my Forbes articles, but that's what I want, like for people to see themselves, and whether I know them or not, to feel like that was a life-changing moment for me where I just started showing up differently.
Absolutely. Well, listen, if you are tuning in, we both just want you to know that you are capable, you are worthy, and this
Yes.
this can happen for you. Adunola, thank you so much for being here today. Seriously, I swear I say this like every other week. We're gonna figure out a part two.
Yes.
We'll let the people speak and let us know what more they want to hear. But seriously,
Please.
this has been so amazing. Thank you so much for gracing this platform. We appreciate
I'm
you.
so happy to be here, and I would love to be back. So just let me know when.
Amazing. Well, for those of y'all tuning in, this has been awesome. Until next time, bye.